Well, welcome everyone. Looks like we have a standing room only crowd, as you might expect. If there's a seat next to you, raise your hand. And if one of you is dying to sit down, go after that seat. And no fighting. All right. Well, thanks all of you for coming tonight, and it's really wonderful to see you here. If you haven't already done so, this is a good time to turn off any phone or other device that might make an unintentional, embarrassing squeal, ring, or buzz tonight. Five seats. You could scalp these. Well, while we're shuffling around, let me introduce myself. My name is Gary Young, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th annual Morton Marcus Poetry Reading. As a now retired member of the creative writing faculty here at UCSC, I'm thrilled that tonight's reading is part of the ongoing Living Writers series, and that we are again able to meet in this gorgeous space. I love this spot. Tonight's reading would not be possible without the efforts of many individuals and the generous support of several institutions. I'd like to thank our sponsors. This community event is presented by the Humanities Institute and co-sponsored by the Owl Family Properties, Donna F. Mekas, Side by Side Studios, the Hive Poetry Collective, Bookshop Santa Cruz, Cabrillo College English Department, and UC Santa Cruz, the University Library Special Collections and Archives, Living Writers Series, Cowell College, Merrill College, and Porter College. I would also like to acknowledge and salute my good friends on the Morton Marcus Poetry Reading Organizing Committee, whose names you'll find in the program, I hope. Good. For the past 16 years, the Morton Marcus Reading has honored our dear friend, Morton Marcus. And when we consider the wealth of poetry readings, slams, open mics, and other literary events that we are blessed with in this community, it may be hard for some of you, especially some of you students, to realize that there was a time when this was not the case. The readings that Mort established here in the early 70s primed the pump for all the many literary events that we now enjoy. Mort championed poets and poetry and energized our entire artistic community. In addition to his poetry, Mort was a novelist, memoirist, film and literary critic. He taught at Cabrillo College for 30 years, hosted the poetry show in our local community radio station, as well as a popular television program. Mort received a Gail Rich Award and was honored as the Santa Cruz County Artist of the Year. His influence is a continuing presence, and I encourage you to peruse Morton's archive, which is now held in the Special Collections Library at UC Santa Cruz. Every year, it is my delight to go through Mort's many books and to pick out a short selection to read for you. This annual ritual always brings Mort back with astonishing intensity. I can honestly feel his presence as I thumb through his books and read all the inscriptions. Tonight I'm going to start with There Are Days Now, from Big Winds, Glass Mornings, Shadows Cast by Stars, poems 1972 to 1980, and listening to Lou Harrison's Suite for Violin and Gamelan shortly after the composer's death, from Dark Figure in the Doorway, last poems, and I'll finish with At Peace, a prose poem from Moments Without Names. There are days now when I can see the souls of elephants being towed to heaven. Soon the trees will be loosed from their moorings and sail off like a chorus of Greek women rigid with grief. And the whales, soon the whales will be hulks full of sand. I'm resigned to this, but with each of these premonitions, there is a crumbling along the banks of my bloodstream. So if I touch you now, my friend, how can it be with my whole hand, the fat resting firm beneath the palm, and not with clutching fingers, as though I had grabbed you in passing and were holding on? I couldn't resist this. In the Cal Press, even though I'm retired, I've been called back to teach my Cal Press course. And we've been playing a lot of gamelan and a lot of Lou Harrison. So listening to Lou Harrison's Suite for Violin and American Gamelan shortly after the composer's death. As I listened to Lou Harrison's Suite for Violin and American Gamelan, a blue jay in the oak tree outside the window shrieks and shrieks, louder and louder, the same exclamation over and over again. I wrote that. I wrote that. I wrote that. At peace. Some nights the universe is a black stone, millions of miles tall and eons wide, and balancing on its surface somewhere, a luminous drop of water is poised like a bird's egg atop of a black moon. But there are other nights when the black monolith's internal structure relaxes and the drop of water sinks with a glowing pearl through the depths, illuminating veins and root ends, tiny skulls with empty eye sockets, fossils of ferns and fish fins, and I'm at peace. If you haven't read Morton, I certainly encourage you to do so. Do we have Morton's books here today? Great. His books will be available after the reading. For the last 14 years, a national poetry competition has been held to honor Morton, and because we had to cancel last year's reading, we have 2 prize-winning poems to celebrate this year. It's a great pleasure to welcome Farnaz Fatemi, Poet Laureate Emerita of Santa Cruz County and a founding member of the Hive Poetry Collection, and Nancy Gomez Miller, Santa Cruz County's current Poet Laureate and this year's Morton Marcus Prize Judge. Please come on up, ladies.
Hello. I am here on behalf of the Hive Poetry Collective, beginning with the administration of last year's Morton Marcus Poetry Prize. We now organize and coordinate this annual event. I am so proud that the Hive is part of such a special legacy. Each year, the winning poet receives a $1,000 prize thanks to George Au and Au Family Properties. We also invite them to read their winning poem on stage. Last year's winner was selected by the 2024 judge, Brad Crenshaw, who couldn't be here tonight. Last year's winning poet, Elizabeth Jacobson of Santa Fe, New Mexico, is also unable to join us tonight. But I am delighted to stand in for her and read her winning poem, One Taste. And it is 2 pages long, so you know what you're listening for. One taste. The Buddha said the ocean has one taste, salt, but I taste the green alaria of the Atlantic, ropey and dense. I unwind it from the tentacles of blue bubbles we've named man-o'-war. and suck its silky tendrils. I taste the eternal note of sadness from the spray off the cliffs at Dover Beach, the skin of those I am swimming with and those who are now back on shore. Whale sperm, sea star arms, fan corals, barracuda piss. The essence of the deepest dwelling radiolarian, with their intricate snowflake skeletons, rests like a song on my tongue. I open my mouth to the sea, and in floods the flavor of Alberta Seba's seven-headed serpent, with its slick, emerald, prehistoric back and fairy tale humps. I taste a radiance from the moon, always overhead, where dust smells like spent gunpowder. I taste the way the black sand looked from the window of the bus going down the west coast of Peru, an exhausted sea on one side of the road, shining path shacks disintegrating into the pale dunes on the other. I take the water in and swish it around my mouth, toss it back and gargle with a throat full of zooplankton and single-cell organism-sized bits of plastic hitching a ride in the cascade. I taste the whale rise, their lime green fecal plumes at the surface of the sea. Rich in nutrients, they feed the phytoplankton, which bob in the surf like invisible friends. I taste an oil slick of sunscreen, dark globs of sticky tar, metallic treasure chests of sunken gold and jewelry, harmful algae blooms, feces from cruise ships. I smell the dwindling Colorado River water vanishing into human forms. I taste the burning retch caused by 2 fingers down the back of a throat, a thick coating on the tongue, the tang of scum and fetid water tormenting its own esophagus. I taste the smell of blazing old-growth ponderosas, aflame in forests too parched to resist a spark of lightning. Our screaming bougainvillea, our ornamental grass, our fields of corn, our poisonous syrups. There is an island in the North Pacific where albatross roost and die. Their decomposing bodies reveal the colorful tangle and web of petrocarbon refuse. The Buddha said that just as the oceans have one taste, so in our lives there is one taste, freedom. But I taste a saccharinity, the stink of enchantment. All of us heaving the same tragic sea inside, a continuous wave after wave of what happens over and over. From the shore, the moon ascends pink above the Atlantic. How indifferent a sea feels with its suggestion of infinity. After a Leonid shower on a moonless night, I find moon jelly after moon jelly tossed from the surf, high on the beach. Wanting nothing more of water, their clover-shaped insides have turned fuchsia in death, leaving the outline of a crown at the top of their translucence. Yeah.
Thank you, Farnaz. That was beautifully read, beautiful poem. But now it is my great pleasure to congratulate this year's Morton Marcus, the winner of this year's Morton Marcus Poetry Competition, Joyce Victor. I chose her poem, Philip's Celebration, from amongst hundreds of submissions because I loved her straightforward description of a scene that felt physically embodied and emotionally authentic. I loved how the poem captured all the essential touch points of what it means to be human. Our desire to forge deep emotional connections, no matter the circumstances. Our enduring need for love and acceptance. Our potential to achieve redemption despite our mistakes. And our ongoing capacity for kindness, generosity, and forgiveness. Please welcome Joyce Victor.
Hi. Well, when I heard that I had won this, I was moved to tears. And this is a poem about men in solitary confinement in New Mexico, where I'm from. But you have, of course, solitary confinement here, Pelican Bay. And many men and women and children spend long periods of time in a form of torture, really. Anyway, I had the privilege of spending some time in that part of the New Mexican state prisons, and so I wrote this poem. But first, I just want to thank you very much for including me, Poetry Hive people, and Donna for allowing this to happen in honor of her husband. And I also want to say that two of my just most special teachers, Ellen Bass and Danusha Lamaris, who have taught me so much that I even know what the problems are in this poem. I already caught the lines. So. And I'm from New Mexico as well as the previous winner. Okay. This is called Philip's Celebration. The guests are 5 men in a row, each alone in a cell with a slab bed, a lidless toilet, no windows, but always light from fluorescence. Solitary confinement in prison. Could be night or day, they keep in touch through the heating pipes. Hey, what's up? Oh, nothing much. They know the slow of endless time. Phillips being moved to Clayton Men's Max. He, a former Satanist with devil horns tattooed on his temples, but converted by Timothy, next cell over and on death row, to the King James Bible. Before Phil gets taken, the education lady crosses the barbed wire yard and waits for Warden Gomez's permission for caramel popcorn. She pushes the sticky kernels through each door's narrow slot to receiving hands. The men eat like eager mice. No, like hungry ghosts. Please give me more. I haven't tasted this in years. When it's time to talk about Philip, each shouts out in turn into the hallway. How Philip gave away his dinner tray to a hungry neighbor. The pretty women he drew on his napkins, fished to them under their doors with dental floss. The Johnny Cash he sang to them through the pipes. Quiet for a moment. Perhaps Philip takes in he has worth, that this is goodbye from his family. Loudly, he lifts his voice. This is the best party I ever had. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce, for that amazing poem, and congratulations again, and thank you again, Farnaz and Nancy. It is now a very good pleasure to introduce our featured reader and my friend, Ellen Bass. But where to start? Her accolades could take up this entire introduction. They include a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, the Lambda Literary Award, several pushcart prizes, and she has served as a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. Ellen's influence on poetry, both locally and nationally, has been nothing less than extraordinary. Her reach goes so deep and her influence has been so vital that she is more like some natural force than a mere poet. Ellen Bass is the author of several books of poetry, most recently Indigo, but also Like a Beggar, The Human Line, Mules of Love, and I Am Not Your Laughing Daughter. I'll say a little bit about Ellen's poetry in a moment, but I want to mention and salute some of her other works, her other books, which have made such a resonating effect. In 1973, Ellen co-edited No More Masks, an anthology of poems by women. It's a groundbreaking work whose importance can't be overestimated. With Laura Davis, she published The Courage to Heal, a guide for women, survivors of sexual abuse. I Never Told Anyone, Writings for Women, Survivors of Child Sexual Abuse. Did I say that twice? Free Your Mind, the book for gay, lesbian, and bisexual youth and their allies, and many other books and workbooks for men, women recovering from childhood sexual abuse. I mention these books not only to honor Ellen's activism, but because they have dearly and clearly influenced her poetry, which is exuberant, unapologetic, and situated firmly in the world with all its messiness, cruelty, and wonder. Ellen Bass shows us not only what a poem can do, but more importantly, what a poet can do. In addition to publishing her many books, she founded the poetry program at the Salinas Valley State Prison, the Santa Cruz Poetry Project, which offers poetry workshops to men and women incarcerated in Santa Cruz County jails. And she is co-founder of the Survivors Healing Center. Her presence in our local community is a blessing. Her classes, workshops, and readings are legendary, and she is not simply a poet, but a healing force. The first thing you notice when you read a poem by Ellen Bass is that she is as comfortable in her poems as she is comfortable in the world. Her poems are lyrical, intelligent, and unabashedly sexy. She takes the measure of her life and the lives of those around her, and she does not look away. Her poems are filled with bodies, with the mud and muck of the world, with crying babies and barking dogs, all of which she weaves with memory and desire into poems that will make you cry and laugh, often at the same time. That duality is present in so much of her work. As she says in a poem from Mules of Love, the thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it. And appetite for food, for love, for touch, is one of the chief engines that drives Ellen's poems. As she says in her poem, Enough, oh, blame life, that we just want more. Summer rain, mud, a cup of tea, our teeth, our eyes, a baby in a stroller, another spoonful of creme brulee, sweet burnt crust crackling, and hot showers. Oh, lovely, lovely hot showers. Please welcome Ellen Bass.
Oh my goodness. Gosh. Live long enough and you get to do some stuff. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's really, really touched. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Look at your beautiful faces. Last year, some of you know I got COVID when I was supposed to be here, and I was so disappointed. And lest you think I'm a really good person, there was a really big part of me that wanted to come anyway. But of course I couldn't, so I'm so happy to be here, and especially happy to read for the Morton Marcus Memorial Reading. I came to Santa Cruz in 1974, and Mort introduced me at my very first poetry reading here. It was a day or two after Anne Sexton had taken her life in early October 1974. And he introduced me, and he said he was passing the baton. And Anne had been my teacher at Boston University, so I was shocked and heartbroken, and the idea that he could be passing the baton to me was a little stunning. But I got up there and I read something, and Mort's generosity. Many of you know as much or more about Mort as I do. His generosity toward other poets, his big embrace of welcoming into the community, and all that he's done for our community makes this a really special reading to me. And Gary and I both wanted to read this poem of Mort's. I have many favorites, but it's one of my favorites, and he very graciously allowed me to read it. It's called Blinking. You've got to love life so much that you don't want to miss a moment of it, and pay such close attention to whatever you're doing that each time you blink, you can hear your eyelashes applauding what you've just seen. In each eye, there are more than 80 eyelashes, 40 above and 40 below, like 40 pairs of arms working, 80 pairs in both eyes, a whole audience clapping so loud you can hardly bear to listen. 160 hands batter each other every time you blink. Bravo, they call. Encore, encore. Paralyzed in a hospital bed or watching the cold rain from under a bridge, remember this. I'm going to read some poems from my last few books and also some new poems. And I'm going to start with this one, which is called Sous Chef. I am a terrible chef and an excellent sous chef because I'm able to follow directions and I don't have opinions. And that's the quality that you want in a sous chef. Sous chef. I like cutting the cucumber, the knife slicing the darkness into almost transparent moons, each with its own thin rim of night. I like smashing the garlic with the flat of steel and peeling the sticky, papery skin from the clove. Tell me what to do, I'm free of will. I carve the lamb into 1-inch cubes. I don't use a ruler, but I'd be happy to. Give me a tomato, bright as a parrot. Give me peaches like burning clouds. I'll pare those globes until dawn. The syrup will linger on my fingers like your scent. Let me escape my own insistence. I am the bee feeding the queen. Show me how you want the tart glazed. I still have opinions, but I don't believe in them. Let me fillet the supple bones from the fish. Let me pit the cherries, husk the corn. You say how much cinnamon to spice the stew. I've made bad decisions, so I'm grateful for this yoke lowered onto my shoulders, potatoes mounded before me. With all that's destroyed, look how the world still yields a golden pear, freckle and floral, a shimmering marvel. It rests in my palm so heavily, perfectly. Somewhere there is hunger, somewhere fear, but here the chopping block is solid, my blade sharp. This next poem I wrote for a friend who was, I thought she needed this advice, but really whatever we write, we're talking to ourselves, and it turns out that I needed this advice a lot. It's called Relax. Relax. Bad things are going to happen. Your tomatoes will grow a fungus, and your cat will get run over. Someone will leave the bag with the ice cream melting in the car and throw your blue cashmere sweater in the dryer. Your husband will sleep with a girl your daughter's age, her breasts spilling out of her blouse. Or your wife will remember she's a lesbian and leave you for the woman next door. The other cat, the one you never really liked, will contract a disease that requires you to pry open its feverish mouth every 4 hours. Your parents will die. No matter how many vitamins you take, how much Pilates, you'll lose your keys, your hair, and your memory. If your daughter doesn't plug her heart into every live socket she passes, you'll come home to find your son has emptied the refrigerator, dragged it to the curb, and called the used appliance store for a pickup, drug money. The Buddha tells a story of a woman chased by a tiger. When she comes to a cliff, she sees a sturdy vine and climbs halfway down. But there's also a tiger below, and 2 mice, one white, one black, scurry out and begin to gnaw at the vine. At this point, she notices a wild strawberry growing from a crevice. She looks up, down at the mice. Then she eats the strawberry. So here's the view, the breeze, the pulse in your throat. Your wallet will be stolen. You'll get fat. Slip on the bathroom tiles in a foreign hotel and crack your hip. You'll be lonely. Oh, taste how sweet and tart the red juice is, how the tiny seeds crunch between your teeth. Thank you. This next poem is called Gate C-22, and as you'll hear, it took place in the Portland airport. This is a true story. I mean, most of my poems are true stories, although everything in them isn't true. Actually, with Relax, a friend of mine's teenage daughter came in and saw this book on the kitchen table, opened it up, and she read through, and she said, "Did all of that happen to her?" It was wonderful. No. But this one did, and I'm a person who likes to do things 5 minutes ago, and if you need a plan, I like not only plan A and B, but all through the alphabet in case each one doesn't work out. So when my plane was delayed in the airport, I was rushing around from counter to counter to try and get on the first available plane, all of which was of no avail, and so I had to be there. And because I had to be there, I got to see what's going to happen in this poem, and I'm trying to learn from that, but I'm a slow learner. But I have found that the things that are very, very annoying in life are often marvelous for poems. And so if I could be delayed in more airports, maybe I would get more wonderful poems. This is Gate C-22. At Gate C-22 in the Portland airport, a man in a broadband leather hat kissed a woman arriving from Orange County. They kissed and kissed and kissed. Long after the other passengers clicked the handles of their carry-ons and wheeled briskly toward short-term parking, the couple stood there, arms wrapped around each other, like he'd just staggered off the boat at Ellis Island, like she'd been released at last from ICU, snapped out of a coma, survived bone cancer, made it down from Annapurna in only the clothes she was wearing. Neither of them was young. His beard was gray. She carried a few extra pounds you could imagine her saying she had to lose. But they kissed lavish kisses, like the ocean in the early morning, the way it gathers and swells, sucking each rock under, swallowing it again and again. We were all watching. Passengers waiting for the delayed flight to San Jose, the stewardesses, the pilots, the aproned woman icing Cinnabons, the man selling sunglasses. We couldn't look away. We could taste the kisses crushed in our mouths. But the best part was his face when he drew back and looked at her, his smile soft with wonder, almost as though he were a mother still open from giving birth, as your mother must have looked at you, no matter what happened after, if she beat you or left you or you're lonely now. You once lay there, the vernix not yet wiped off, and someone gazed at you as if you were the first sunrise seen from the earth. The whole wing of the airport hushed, all of us trying to slip into that woman's middle-aged body, her plaid Bermuda shorts, sleeveless blouse, glasses, little gold hoop earrings, tilting our heads up. This next poem is called Taking Off the Front of the House. I'm at the kitchen table, drinking strong tea, eating eggs with poppy gold yolks from our chickens, Marilyn and Estelle. There's a red car parked across the street and my neighbor's gorgeous irises, their frilled tongues tasting the air. Monsanto is suing Vermont, I say, turning the pages of the Times. I say it loud because Janet's in the living room, in the faded chair the cat has scratched into hay, eating yogurt and the strawberries she brought home from the field, where she labors to relieve the tenderberry of its heavy chemical load. What? She says. She isn't wearing her hearing aids, so I take a breath and project my voice. And as I enunciate the corporate evils, suddenly the front of the house is sheared away. We're on a stage, the audience seated on the asphalt of Young Love Avenue, watching this quirky couple eat their breakfast and yell back and forth from one room to another. And throughout the day, as I throw a load of laundry in the dryer, answer the phone, as she lies on the couch reading Great Expectations, and we bicker about the knocking in the pipes and whether we really need to call a plumber, I admire how the actor who plays the character of me and the actor who plays the character of her perform our parts so perfectly in this production that will last just a little while before it closes for good. And when night comes, we smoke a little weed, something called thunderfuck, which must be someone's high opinion of himself, but in truth is quite nice, though we only take a couple tokes since Janet's on blood pressure medication and she can't do the way she did at 20 when she slung a goatskin bag over her shoulder and wandered around Senegal in flip-flops. As I reach for her, she says, "Now the audience can sit on the back deck by the barbecue, and this play can be called The Old Lesbians Go to Bed at the End of the Day." I light the candle her mother gave me for my last birthday when she could still put on her lipstick. The set is authentic, a messy stack of books on my nightstand. On her side, the hearing aids that sit there all day. And as she turns toward me, and I feel again the marvelous architecture of her hips, the moon, that expert in lighting, rises over the roofline, flooding us in her flawless silvery wash. Thank you. I'm going to intersperse some new poems with the ones that are already in books. And this next poem is dedicated to my granddaughter, June, who is a major player in my poetry and my new muse. And it's called Laundry. And I call her a baby here because she was very young, even though she's not a baby anymore. Laundry. The babies dragged the sheets to the kitchen, and now she's stuffing them in the washer. One hand lifting a wad of yellow cotton, the other reaching down for more and more. Breathing heavy, she's feeding vast swaths by the armful, bent halfway into the mouth of the machine. A strip of skin exposed where her shirt's ridden up, an edge of diaper sticking out of her pants. Who can watch a child and not feel fear, like static in the background, or a tinnitus you try to ignore? This morning in the Times, I saw the galaxy Leda, 2046648, each spiral arm distinct and bright against the dark ink. Light from 1 billion years ago, just as the first multicellular life emerged on Earth. What are the not quite 2 years of this intent creature in the sweep of time? Her quadriceps and scapula, the alveoli of her lungs, 27 bones of her hand that evolved from the fin of an ancient fish, and her scribbly hair sticking up from her first ponytail. When she was in her mother's body, the California fires turned the air a smoky topaz, and the sun glowed orange on the kitchen wall. Last month, the floodwaters rose and seeped under the door. Still, there must be time for this, to watch her, hands deep into the doing. She's wedded to the things of this world. When she stands, her sleeve slips down, and she pushes it up like any woman at work. Thank you. Some of you knew my dog Zeke, who loved poetry and poets, and truly. And when I taught classes in my living room, Zeke would go around to everybody and say hello as they came in, and then lie down on the floor and just listen for the next 3 hours. And I wrote this poem for him when he was quite old and dying, and it's called Ode to Zeke. O breathing drum, O cask of dark waters, O decaying star, my barking heart, my breaking brother, what will seep into the space your body leaves? O huge 18-muscled ears, oscillating ossicles and cochlea, your busy canals, now hollow caves of quiet. I have said your fur is black, but you are silvered, rhymed with frost. You are the new moon, you are light in the dark house. How long will I see your shadow? O heavy hunk of existence, O great flank I have rested my head upon when I was too weak for human touch. Sleek leading man, you debonair dog. How people on the avenue stopped to swoon. O splaying legs once faster than rabbits, canines slashing flesh. Urgent thug, unstoppable thrust. O happy snapping at the wind. What do you remember now that you are mudslide, glacier melting, cliff collapsing into the sea? I have memorized your milky breath, your ballet leaps and whirly gigging, your princely patience as the children dressed you. Soccer Zeke in jersey and shorts, one paw on the ball. Snorkel Zeke with mask and fins. Bar mitzvah Zeke in a yarmulke and my father's silk talit. Oh, my text of decrepitude, my usher to death, companion of 10,000 years. I'll fry you a fish, I'll sit by your bowl, eat from my hand. I have nowhere to go. Thank you. I told the kids I would kill them if they tore my father's silk talit, but they didn't. We have our Zeke scrapbook with all those pictures of him. He was the most patient dog. I like to write odes sometimes. I like to write odes in general. When I feel really, really like I don't know how to begin anything, sometimes I'll just write ode to at the top of the page, and somehow it will get me started. But I especially like to write odes to things that are not normally praised, the overlooked and the disparaged, and this is Ode to Fat. Tonight, as you undress, I watch your wondrous flesh that swelled again, the way a river swells when the ice relents. Sweet relief, just to regard the sheaves of your hips, your boundless breasts and marshy belly. I adore the acreage of your thighs and praise the promising planets of your ass. Oh, you were lean that terrifying year you were unraveling, as though you were returning to the slender scrap of a girl I fell in love with. But your skin was vacant, a ripped sack, sugar spilling out and your bones insistent. Oh, praise the loyalty of the body that labors to rebuild its palatial realm. Bless butter, bless brie. Sanctify schmaltz and cream and cashews. Stoke the furnace of the stomach and load the vessels. Darling, drench yourself in opulent oil, the lamp of your body glowing. May you always flourish, enormous and sumptuous, be marbled with fat, a great vault that I can enter, the cathedral where I pray. My wife has always been a great muse. Sometimes, like with the hearing aids when she annoys me, but other times when she brings me out into the world from what she calls my cave. And one day, it was spring, early summer, and our peach tree had just begun to make peaches. And I was sitting there in my dark little office scribbling on pieces of paper, and she came in, and she knew I wasn't going to come out and look at it, and she came in holding it, and she just went, "Here, write about this." Like, you're not going to come out into the world, I'll bring the world into you. So this is Ode to the First Peach. Only one insect has feasted here. A clear stub of resin plugs the scar, and the hollow where the stem was severed shines with juice. The fur still silvered like a caul. Even in the next minute, the hairs will darken, turn more golden in my palm. Heavier this flesh than you would imagine, like the sudden weight of a newborn. Oh, what a marriage of citron and blush. It could be a planet reflected through a hall of mirrors, or what a swan becomes when a fairy shoots it from the sky at dawn. At the beginning of the world, when the first dense pith was ravished and the stars were not yet lustrous coins fallen from the pockets of night, who could have dreamed this would be curried from the chaos, scent of morning and sugar, bruise and hunger, silent, swollen, clefted life, remnant always remaking itself out of that first flaming brightness. I'd like to read this poem, it's called Bringing Flowers to Salinas Valley State Prison, and I'd like to read it, and it's dedicated to Nancy Gomez, who has been my partner in starting all of these programs, without whom it never would have happened, all of this. And also to all of you here, I know there are at least a number of you who have been volunteering in the either down at Salinas Valley State Prison before COVID, when we were having the workshops down there, and also here now for quite a while in the Santa Cruz jail. So just thank you to everyone who has put in time. I wrote this poem in the spring, and the flowers in Santa Cruz that year just seemed to be more glorious than ever before, and it just broke my heart that these men would never be able to see them. And so I cooked up this idea that I wasn't sure I would be able to get through. The guards were changeable. Sometimes you could bring certain things in and sometimes you couldn't. You never really knew quite how it would go. But I thought I'd give it a try, and I got together all these flowers, and I just tried to make it as innocuous as possible. I took every thorn off the roses. I put them in little paper cups so that there'd be no like plastic that you could weaponize or something like. Anyway, and I had all these little Dixie cups in a like a little cardboard box. Like, I felt like Demeter, just carrying spring. And the oddest part, I know you're really not supposed to make introductions that are longer than the poem, so just forgive me. I'm going to get carried away, but you can't stop halfway. So the most amazing thing was that no one batted an eye. as though people just always were walking in with trays full of flowers. And I got all the way through, and we were able to have them in the workshop, and then you'll see what happens next. But bringing flowers to Salinas Valley State Prison. When Mr. H. saw the little meadow blooming on the steel table, he bowed to the starry faces of jasmine. This is the first flower I've smelled in 20 years. And when I slid each man a bouquet in a paper cup, Mr. M said, I'll have such a short time with these. We spoke then about beauty and loss, the great themes of poetry. And when our time was done and the guards said they had to leave the flowers, most of the men acquiesced. But Mr. S. insisted he had, as a Native American, a right to his rituals, sage, sweet corn, tobacco, and no one could stop him, it was the law, from taking these sacred plants back to his cell. Then he raised his cup and drank the water the flowers were drinking, and a small wind stirred in that windowless room as we watched Mr. S. quietly bite the heads off the Peruvian lilies, crushing their pink sepals and the gold inner petals flecked with maroon, swallowing the silvery filaments, their dark, pollen-laden anthers, his mouth frothing with blossoms. Thank you. This poem's called If You Knew. What if you knew you'd be the last to touch someone? If you were taking tickets, for example, at the theater, tearing them, giving back the ragged stubs, you might take care to touch that palm, brush your fingertips along the lifeline's crease. When a man pulls his wheeled suitcase too slowly through the airport, when the car in front of me doesn't signal, when the clerk at the pharmacy won't say thank you, I don't remember they're going to die. A friend told me she'd been with her aunt. They'd just had lunch, and the waiter, a young gay man with plum black eyes, joked as he served the coffee, kissed her aunt's powdered cheek when they left. Then they walked half a block, and her aunt dropped dead on the sidewalk. How close does the dragon's spume have to come? How wide does the crack in heaven have to split? What would people look like if we could see them as they are, soaked in honey, stung and swollen, reckless, pinned against time? This next poem came about, my wife and I were trying to figure out how to find meat to eat that we felt had been raised in a way that the animals were having a good life until they weren't. And we thought we'd start with chickens, and she did some research, and the more research she did on various companies, the less satisfied we were with it. And right about then, some young friends of ours were raising chickens on their land, and they asked us if we wanted them to raise some for us. And we were very pleased and said yes. And 3 months later, we got a call, and he said that the chickens were ready to be slaughtered, and did we want to help? And I didn't know anything about chickens, and I didn't even know it took 3 months for them to, be of age. But I felt that if I was going to eat a chicken, I should be willing to kill a chicken. And so that's how this poem came about. I wasn't going to read it because we have chickens for eggs and we don't kill them. And my granddaughter was sitting there, but now that she's gone, I can read you the poem. I just didn't want her to think that we were going to start killing our chickens. Okay. What did I love? What did I love about killing the chickens? Let me start with the drive to the farm as darkness was sinking back into the earth. The road damp and shining like the snail's silver ribbon and the orchard with its bony branches. I loved the yellow rubber aprons and the way Janet knotted my broken strap, and the stainless steel altars we bleached, Brian sharpening the knives, testing the edge on his thumbnail, all 88 Cornish hens huddled in their crates, wrapping my palms around their white wings, lowering them into the tapered urn. Some seemed unwitting as the world narrowed. Some cackled and fluttered, some struggled. I gathered each one, tucked her bright feet, drew her head through the kill cone's sharp collar, her keratin beak and the rumpled red vascular comb that once kept her cool as she pecked in her mansion of grass. I didn't look into those stone eyes. I didn't ask forgiveness. I slid the blade between the feathers and made quick crescent cuts, severing the arteries just under the jaw, blood like liquor pouring out of the bottle. When I see the nub of heart later, it's hard to believe such a small star could flare like that. I lifted each body, bathing it in heated water until the scaly membrane of the shanks sloughed off under my thumb. And after they were tossed in the large plucking drum, I loved the newly naked birds, sundering the heads and feet neatly at the joints, a poor man's riches for golden stock. Slitting a fissure, reaching into the chamber, freeing the organs, the spill of intestines, blue-tinged gizzard, the small purses of lungs, the royal hearts, easing the floppy liver carefully from the green gallbladder, its bitter bile, and the fascia unfurling like a transparent fan. When I tug the esophagus down through the neck, I love the suck and release as it lets go, then slicing off the anus with its gray pearl of shit. Over and over, my hands explore each cave, learning to see with my fingertips, like a traveler in a foreign country, entering church after church. In every one, the same figures of the Madonna, Christ on the cross, which I'd always thought was gore, until Marie said to her it was tender, the most tender image. Every saint and political prisoner, every jailed poet and burning monk. But though I have all the time in the world to think thoughts like this, I don't. I'm empty as I rinse each carcass, and this is what I love most. It's like when the refrigerator turns off and you hear the silence. As the sun rose higher, we shed our sweatshirts and moved the coolers into the shade. But other than that, no time passed. I didn't get hungry. I didn't want to stop. I was breathing from some bright reserve. We twisted each pullet into plastic, iced and loaded them in the cars. I loved the truth, even in just this one thing. Looking straight at the terrible, one-sided accord we make with the living of this world. At the end, we scoured the tables, hosed the dried blood, the stain blossoming through the water. This next poem is called Indigo, and it's the title poem of my most recent book, Indigo. Sometimes people ask me how long it takes to write a poem for me, and there's never a really way to answer, because I wrote this poem, in one sense, I wrote it in a couple of weeks, but I'd been trying to write it for about 40 years. So is it 2 weeks or 40 years, or maybe it's 40 years and 2 weeks? Indigo. As I'm walking on West Cliff Drive, a man runs toward me, pushing one of those jogging strollers with shock absorbers so the baby can keep sleeping, which this baby is. I can just get a glimpse of its almost translucent eyelids. The father is young, a jungle of indigo and carnelian, tattooed from knuckle to jaw, leafy vines and blossoms, saints and symbols. Thick wooden plugs pierce his lobes, and his sunglasses testify to the radiance haloed around him. I'm so jealous, as I often am. It's a kind of obsession. I want him to have been my child's father. I want to have married a man who wanted to be in a body, who wanted to live in it so much that he marked it up like a book, underlining, highlighting, writing in the margins, I was here. Not like my dead ex-husband, who was always fighting against the flesh, who sat for hours on his zafu chanting Om, and then went out and broke his hand punching the car. I imagine when this galloping man gets home, he's going to want to have sex with his wife, who slept in late, and then he'll eat barbecued ribs and let the baby teeth on a bone while he drinks a dark beer. I can't stop wishing my daughter had had a father like that. I can't stop wishing I'd had that life. Oh, I know, it's a miracle to have a life, any life at all. It took 8 years for my parents to conceive me. First there was the war, and then just waiting, and my mother's bones so narrow she had to be slit and I airlifted. That anyone is born, each precarious success, from sperm and egg to zygote, embryo, infant, is a wonder. And here I am alive, almost 70 years, and nothing has killed me. Not the car I totaled running a stop sign or the spirochete that screwed into my blood. Not the tree that fell in the forest exactly where I was standing, my best friend shoving me backwards so I fell on my ass as it crashed. I'm alive, and I gave birth to a child. So she didn't get a father who'd sling her onto his shoulder, and so much else she didn't get. I've cried most of my life over that. And now there's everything that we can't talk about. We love, but cannot take too much of each other. Yet she is the one who, when I asked her to kill me if I no longer had my mind, we were on our way into Ross, shopping for dresses. That's something she likes, and they all look adorable on her. She's the only one who didn't hesitate or refuse or waver or flinch. As we strode across the parking lot, she said, "Okay, but when's the cutoff? That's what I need to know." That's my girl. I'm going to read a couple newer poems. This one, newer is relative for me because I'm a slow writer, and there's quite a lot of years in between books. But this I wrote early in the pandemic, and it's called During the Pandemic, I listened to the July 26, 1965 Juan Lapin recording of A Love Supreme. The first familiar know them anywhere notes bless me this savage morning. Coltrane's horn racing up and down every alley, in and out of veins and over the faces of lakes and into the heart of stones. And when he repeats a love supreme again and again, it's as though if he says it enough, he can ease that mercy down into me, into the tiny acicular chain, the chemical rush, the spark, and my brain getting it, if even just for this 32 minutes and 48 seconds. My daughter's been sick 7 weeks with the virus. Yesterday she felt a little bored, she texted, and I grabbed that like a shopping cart. I load it up with hope. Make it prayer. When the day's portion of the Torah is recited, someone stands by to correct mistakes. The words must vibrate precisely in the air. So I open my door to the breath of his instrument that refuses nothing, lavishing the grass, gutters, and trees, concrete, cars, the gopher pulling down the new lettuces, this generous sound that can mean anything, nothing, whatever you need. And isn't that God? Isn't that it? This shivering, this fall to my knees. Gods do walk among us, but humans are, after all, a broken promise. And yet, these humans seem to be trying to enter what? I can almost hear it, this old planet. Worms passing earth through their tissue, orchids, corn, mockingbirds throwing themselves into song like there's no tomorrow, which there may not be. Yet, still a mountain, still wind, and Coltrane still offering the same 4 notes, like a teacher who is infinitely patient. He's telling me it's worth it to be in a body. He's telling me I'm alive in a beach town in California, and my daughter in a high-rise in Vancouver, my girl lying feverish on the couch she's been lying on, 49 days and 49 nights, still alive. This is a long prose poem that I'm going to read, and then I'll read a short one. Why do poets always tell you like what they're, 3 more to go? There was one. I once gave a poetry reading at Bookshop with another poet who I invited to read with me, who's not here tonight, so I can just say this. And she read before me, and you know how people say, okay, I have 3 more poems or 2 more. She said, I have 8 more poems. Oh no, save us. I've been experimenting a lot with the prose poem in the last couple of years, and Morton Marcus's prose poems have been inspirational, as have some others, and this is a long prose poem called What I Like About Poetry, and then there'll be a little poem to end with. What I like about poetry is how roomy it is, how you can take a moment and stretch it like a cat stretches, her loose spine arching, how she splays her paws, each padded toe and its keratin claw. Yesterday, the child picked up the photo of our dead cat, lambent eyes shining out from all that black fur. She stroked the sparkles we glued onto the frame. Though the cat began as metaphor, there's space in the poem for her and for the child, and how before the girl is grown, she'll be holding my photo. That and whatever memories I've pressed into her, like a seal into wax. You can open a poem like a box, cardboard or casket, or the jewelry box I had as a girl with a wind-up ballerina that held a little ring shaped like a butterfly that's still somewhere in the house. No one will want it when I die. Nor will they want the Afghans my mother crocheted at night after the liquor store closed, each stitch perfectly even. Though I'll leave the kids a note to be careful with the camel's head Nicola gave me. She said it was from 300 BC. The features softened by the centuries and so fragile, specks of clay flake off at a touch. On a shelf above my desk are the pages Nicola typed. I spent the summer of 1949 at the east coast of England. These surroundings of water, sun, rain, and wind were helping to heal me of the pain, the death camps, the death of my father, my children, my friends, the unconfirmed death of my beloved husband. There's room in a poem for this. But there's also a chamber for the cherry tree Beverly and I once stood under, devouring the warm fruit, glazed with the juices. In the last half-century, she sent me chocolate cherries wrapped in gold foil, beaded cherries, salt and pepper cherries, cherry napkin holder, apron, dish towel, earrings, and collages of cherries. When we were very young, we dropped acid and sat in a stream in Vermont, and I heard God, or a voice that wasn't mine, say, nothing you could do would ever be wrong. And I understood it meant making love with her. And in what other sphere could I introduce the fascinating fact that female praying mantises don't eat the heads of the male during sex or after? I met the scientist who researched this. He was handsome, and I definitely wouldn't have beheaded him either. I need poetry because how else could I preserve this ordinary morning fog, like canvas on which the trees are painted in sublime green, though the planet is angling into autumn. And the dahlias, like movie stars at the Oscars, in outrageous opulence, purples you could sink your teeth into, bursts of gold, feverish tongues of flame. And where but in a poem is there a place for that shop in southern Italy filled with every kind of olive that we tried to go back to but could never find again? Or the last time we stayed with Florence, not knowing it was the last. Janet and I walked in Central Park as the wind blew yellow leaves down in such profusion it was almost like snow. And as night came on, we carried plastic bags of miso soup and sushi and ate looking out at the little squares of light in the buildings, each with a life, with lives behind them. And what else to do with the ivory letter opener I bought 60 years ago in Nairobi before I knew such things were souvenirs of a massacre? I flew there consumed with desire for a man I'd known for 3 days. When I meet him again decades later, we drink espresso martinis and say goodnight in the hotel lobby, though I want to follow him to the elevator and ride to whatever floor exists that would let us rise up out of our lives for an hour, for a night, for a time when there is no time, which is what the physicists now tell us. What but a poem could bear all the longing and all the loss? Those nights when my sorrow pushed against the walls and doors, and I'd go out to the garden in my white satin robe, bending to the iris and the Peruvian lilies, crushing the snails, my fingers sticky with their slime. Those days I didn't want to die exactly, just I didn't much care if I lived. The poem will carry that, and it will carry what came after. Walking with my son along the streets of Paris, we're just off the plane, jet-lagged and giddy, and the sun shining down like it didn't have a thing to do but give us pleasure. The poem is generous. The poem will hold it all, will hold it even after I am dead. The poem will hold it forever because I will speak the poem aloud. I'll send the sound waves out into the air, and like the static that remains from the beginning of the universe, my rambling poem will be breathed out into space, and however modest, however minuscule the trace, it will not, none of it will, absolutely, utterly disappear. Thank you. Any common desolation can be enough to make you look up at the yellowed leaves of the apple tree, the few that survived the rains and frost, shot with late afternoon sun. They glow a deep orange gold against a blue so sheer a single bird would rip it like silk. You may have to break your heart, but it isn't nothing to know even one moment alive. The sound of an oar in an oarlock, or a ruminant animal tearing grass, the smell of grated ginger, the ruby neon of the liquor store sign, warm socks. You remember your mother, her precision a ceremony, as she gathered the white cotton, slipped it over your toes, drew up the heel, turned the cuff. A breath can uncoil as you walk across your own muddy yard, the Big Dipper pouring night down over you, and everything you dread, all you can't bear, dissolves, and like a needle slipped into your vein, that sudden rush of the world. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for an amazing reading. There are books which I suspect many of you would like to buy. They are in the back of the auditorium, and Ellen will be signing them at this table here. So hopefully we can manage that without running into each other. But before you do that, I have a couple of quick announcements. For years, Morton Marcus was host of KUSP's Poetry Show, the longest running poetry show in the country. And during that time, Mort interviewed hundreds of well-known poets, and now UCSC Special Collections and Archives has made these interviews available to the public. These exceptional interviews are a masterclass in poetry. You can listen to them at, quick, get out your pen. They're digitalcollections.library.ucsc.edu. Just go on online, you'll find them. The annual Morton Marcus poetry reading is made possible due to campus and community co-sponsorships and generous contributions from members of our community like you. To ensure that we can continue to offer this poetry reading free and open to the public in honor and memory of Morton Marcus, and to have our lives deeply enriched by exceptional poetry, please consider making a gift to the Morton Marcus Poetry Reading Fund through the Humanities Institute. That's it. Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming. Please take care, and I look forward to seeing you next year.